Well, hi, everybody. We are towards the end of the semester. We have just two modules left, and so I'm just going to discuss the evaluation assignment we have to do, the final report, and then the final summary paper. So I'm going to pull up the module and we will get started. And I have Alicia here with me, and she will represent the class. So hopefully if you have a question, she's thinking it and she will jump in with that. So all the assignments are graded. Everyone's doing exceptional. I know it's been a lot of work, so thank you for all the effort you've been putting in. So we are right here in module 4, and if you just click on the overview right here, the only things that you have are the quiz that's due and then the evaluation plan. So quiz should be pretty self-explanatory over these 3 chapters here, and then we'll just dive into the evaluation plan. All right, so this one should actually take you the least amount of time compared to the rest. Like I know, like the needs assessment and goals and objectives were pretty lengthy, but this one should hopefully not take you too long because you've done all the hard work. You've done all the evaluation part. So what you're going to do for this one is you're just going to come up with evaluation questions to make sure you're answering your goals and objectives. Because if you can't answer your goals and objectives, then there's really no point of having it. So like say you have an objective that I want there to be a 20% increase in knowledge, but you have no way of knowing if there was actually an increase of knowledge. What's the point? How do you know if the program was effective? Do people actually learn? So that's why I always stress this. You have to plan your evaluation when you're planning your program, because so many people do their program, it's over, and then they're like, oh, let's evaluate it. And they're like, oh, shoot, it would have been helpful if we asked this or did this and that. And it's too late. You just have to go with what you have at this point. So also too, the reason why we submit the final program is because you might be editing it along the way. So maybe you realize like, one of my goals or one of my objectives really isn't the best here. That's okay, you can fix it. That's why we're constantly editing this, because you might recognize that this isn't the best thing I want to do, or I want to do this instead. So what you're gonna do for this is you're gonna review your program objectives, and you're gonna come up with a set of corresponding evaluation questions. And there should be at least one evaluation question for each program objective. And I'll show you what this looks like. We looked at this in a past module, but just in case you forgot, I want to bring that to your attention. And then once you have developed the objective, you need to write a narrative explaining what data will be used to assess the evaluation questions and how it will be collected. So are you just taking attendance, or do you need to do a pre and post test, right? What goes into it? And then finally, you'll just discuss any limitations to the evaluation plan and potential ethical problems that need to be addressed. There might be a lot, there might be nothing, right? But it's just to get you thinking about that. So let's go to, let me pull this up. This was in lecture, no, this is my fall class. I think this was in module 2. It's the same thing. It's titled mission statement, goals and objectives. So this isn't really went over goals and objectives, but I put a part in here where we actually talked about these evaluation questions right here. So this is going to be essentially what you're going to do. If you wanted to make a table like this, you could do this. If you just want to make bullets with your objective and then the evaluation question under it, whatever you think looks best. And we can look over 2 examples as well. But so the first objective they had was, within the first month of the program, planners will recruit 20% of senior centers in the metropolitan Toledo area as sponsors of the program. So they wanted to get 20% of these senior centers as sponsors. So what was the evaluation question? So there's 15 senior centers in the Toledo area. So basically their evaluation is simply this: are 3 of these centers signed up as sponsors of the program within the first month of the program, right? Like sometimes we get like really overwhelmed with evaluation questions, but that's as easy as it is. If your objective is 20% by 1 month, then great. So your evaluation question would be, are 3 of these centers signed up as sponsors? Some might be a little more complicated. So by the end of the pilot program, 30% of recruited participants will complete the course. So we want at least 75 members for this fictitious program, because there's going to be 2 groups, an experimental and control group. So if you want 30% recruited by the end of the pilot program, then there are at least 23 members of each group complete, right? So you would look at hitting that 30% there. So these are just examples. Please make sure you go back to this. You know, like you might have to do some math to figure out what the percentages are, or it might just be easier for you to use numbers and go from there. But all you're gonna do is create an evaluation question to match your objective. And if you're struggling to come up with a way to answer it, you can fix it. Like, oh, maybe this wasn't the best way to write my objective. I'm gonna tweak it. Does that make sense, Alicia, from your end? Okay, perfect. All right, let's go back to this. So, there's two student examples for this. I'm gonna click on this one here. And you'll have to scroll a little bit, it's towards the end, but it's everything in orange right here. So what they did was they just kind of rewrote their objective. And then they stated what their evaluation question would be. So they wanted to secure funding for their first objective. So their question was sufficient funding approved through the UTK program budget to cover the operating budget? So did they get the funding they needed or not, right? That's essentially what their evaluation question was. And then they discussed what they needed here to get the outcome they wanted of their evaluation. So in order to assess the objective and evaluation question, the program management will maintain records of funding that is approved for the orientation and full semester class in order to compare the actual results to the operations budget draft that was submitted. So basically, how are they going to answer this question? How are they going to know if they got the approved funding? And they said just right there, the program management will maintain these records of funding. And then just a limitation might be appropriate funding from the University of Tennessee to have the program available to students and to the support of the program through its entirety, right? So it's a limitation. It might be difficult to get the appropriate amount of funding. And they just kind of went on and did it like this, broke up their process objectives. So at least 85% of students who were recruited will take the pre-survey before beginning the online modules, right? So they want to make sure that there's a pre-test and post-test for this in order to measure what's going on here. So that's kind of what you're going to do. Go through these questions. I sometimes get nervous with examples because students might think like there's has to match up. Like these aren't perfect examples. It's just a way of how they did it there. So that's one there. Another student, they kind of made theirs more in like a narrative format, which both are fine. I sometimes like the bullets or tables, but they just copied their objective in a box down here so it was easy to see. The student was very lengthy, so don't let it scare you like, oh my goodness, I can't write that much. But so they just wrote what their objective was, and then they just kind of in narrative format started talking about how they would do this. So every month they want to recruit 20 students to sign up using a QR code. So they just talk about the monthly report they will get in order to count if there's 20 students. They, you know, have the web address there. They talk about it there. The student was very lengthy, very detailed. And they just talked about it all there in this way. So if narrative format's your jam and you better just typing, or if you're more bulleted, whatever is best for you. Okay, so that's all there is for this one. And this isn't due until next Sunday. So Alicia or anyone who's watching, all you have to do is get this uploaded, and then you can email me if you have questions on it. And if you get it uploaded sooner, the good news is then, you know, if you get it done by this Sunday, for example, then I can give you feedback on it early and you can submit your final paper early and go, I'm done with the semester, you know, a little bit earlier than I thought. But if you need the extra time, it's what it's there for. So let's go back to that. Any other questions on your end, Alicia? Okay, all right, nothing like being put in the spot, but glad you're here. And then in the module 2, I have a whole section here on program evaluation. I'm not going to read it all to you because you're probably maybe looked at it already, or will go through it on your own. That's the point of the online class. But lots of good information outside of your textbook here about the point of evaluation. And this is, remember this right here. I'm just going to circle this about 5 times. This is going to be really important when you take your comprehensive exams and when you take the evaluation course here at UTK, because this is what we're going to actually do with a real live program. So make sure you don't just breeze through that, but you actually understand that part there. So then once you're done with that, we're getting to the fun part here. Let's just go to putting it all together. So everything you worked on, you're going to put in just the final report, and I have a template here for you. If you already have it in your own layout, it's probably completely fine, but this is just a way to look at it. So, just your program name, your name, all that fun stuff, and then this is just kind of a checklist to make sure you have everything, right? You don't have to include, earlier in the semester, we did the, kind of like that interview thing about the vulnerable populations, you don't have to include that part. You're just gonna start here with your, statement of needs with all those phases from the pre-seed proceed that we looked at. Right here, we have your fishbone diagram and narrative. You can have your fishbone diagram, your health education materials, your budget, your timeline, all that in the appendices at the end, so it doesn't kind of mess up your formatting. But if you just want it in the flow too, that's fine too. But make sure you have your fishbone diagram and narrative that you have done. Then you can have a header here, program plan, and this is all the stuff that we just finished as well, with the review of programs, theory, goals and objectives, intervention plan. And again, if you want to move that logic model towards the bottom of the appendices, you can do that as well. Implementation plan, so this is all that stuff that's probably going to go towards the end, but you might just want your community resources, partners, barriers, and that part there. And then your evaluation in orange that I just showed you, your references and your appendices. So you can move anything you want to the appendices, but so long as you have all this in your final paper, you should do just fine. So the good news is all the work is done essentially for that. So it's just putting it all in one report, which will actually be really helpful for you when you do prepare for comps, or you're in a situation at work or an interview or something, and this comes up, you're like, oh, I've done this before, I know how to do that. So then once you're done with that, the last thing we have to do is our student reflection. And this is more informal. So you don't have to have like references and all that stuff. This is just you communicating with me a personal reflection about what you learned. It was a very rushed semester. We learned a lot of material. So I just want you to describe any skills or lessons you've learned through your contributions to these assignments. What aspect of the project provided you with the greatest learning opportunity? What aspect of the evaluation project did you find the most difficult? And what resources did you find to be the most useful for the course activities and project? This is due on Thursday, August 8th. So the final project is due Sunday, and then this is due Thursday. So you have a little time to reflect on this if you want to. Or if you just need a break from working on the final paper, you can get this one done early. But I went through, and these all should be available for you now. So don't let it overwhelm you, seeing all this stuff. Oh, I haven't unlocked the 5th. I'm going to unlock this right now, actually, on this video. So you can get it done early if you want and see that template. So hopefully you'll find that helpful there. So that is all I have. Alicia, any other questions or thoughts? Okay, all right, I am going to stop the recording, and thank you everybody for watching.